Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Good morning. Jai Suprabhatam. We're very fortunate here. Actually, this is one of the few temples in the world where we can, on the days leading up to Ram Navami and on the day of Ram Navami, we can worship Ram. And we can have our eyes feasting on the beauty of Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman, as they are eternally set before us. And it's something that we shouldn't underestimate. There are many, many temples in this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. How about the ladies? Did you get sheets? Can you wave your hand violently if you didn't get a sheet? If you didn't get one. And the men, have you all got a sheet? There's 76 of them, so you should have enough. Just recently I was in another country in Europe, and it struck me that devotees may not be as Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Krishna. Devotees may not be as Ram conscious as we are over here. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has a wonderful song where he sings in praise of Lakshmi Nrsimha. And he's praying to Lakshmi Nrsimha and he's glorifying them. He says, may you remove all the obstacles to my bhakti, and then one day, after worshipping you so much, my eyes will fill with tears of love for Radha and Krishna. So this is the goal. One time Prabhupada was asked, what pleases you most? And he was asked that question by a group of book distributors. It was a setup. They asked him the question so that he would say, and they could record it for all time, the thing that pleases me most is book distribution. But he didn't say that, because he could understand. He said, the thing that pleases me most is somehow or another, if in this lifetime you develop your love for Radha and Krishna. So that is our goal. And where does Ram fit? Where does Lord Nrsimhadev fit? This is Krishna manifesting himself in different moods at different times so that our love for Radha and Krishna can be stimulated and nurtured. Therefore, when we have Lord Ram on the altar, it is an equally important part of becoming Krishna conscious. Therefore, when we worship Lord Nrsimhadev, it's an equally important part of becoming Krishna conscious. So Ramayan is an equally important part of our becoming Krishna conscious. Now that's why it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But most people, who has never heard the story of the Ramayan? Who's brave enough to put your hand up? But see, everybody knows the story. So therefore, when Sukadeva Goswami was telling Parikshit Maharaj, he condensed the story into just a few verses. If you really want to tell the story of Ramayana, 24,000 verses. 24,000 verses, I'm afraid that Maharaj Parikshit would be dead before the end of the story. And that's not fun. Because the end of the telling of anything should be enlightenment. That is the point. So if 18,000 verses took 7 days, 24,000 verses is going to take significantly longer. So therefore in the Srimad Bhagavatam it's very much condensed. So although there are many statements from Srila Prabhupada on, even on the days when we worship Ram, there are many statements where Prabhupada simply gave an ordinary Bhagavatam class. There are other statements where it is helpful for us to worship Lord Ram. People sometimes become confused when they come here, a first-time visitor, and they say, "Oh, this is a temple. It's based in India, right? Your religion is from India." And some devotees will go, "Yeah. So you worship many gods?" And they go, "No. No. We only worship one God. Only worship one God. We're Gaudiya Vaishnava is a monotheistic religion." Oh, and they go, and they spend 5 minutes telling there's a one supreme personality of Godhead. They say, "Okay, what's that room there where everybody is singing?" "Oh, that's the temple room. Come and see the deities." Now, deity, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, is the one supreme personality of Godhead. When you say to someone, "Come and see the deities," you're indicating with the letter S a multiplicity of gods. So in the corridor or in the reception room, you're saying, "Yes, only one supreme personality of Godhead. Now come and see the gods." But this is not difficult. If you're Kanishta Adhikari, it's extremely difficult. If you're well on your way to becoming a Madhyam Adhikari, understanding that the one supreme person manifests in different forms, in order to attract you in different ways to his service, then it's easy to understand. So we're coming towards Ram Nomi. Ram is not a god for other people. He's not a god for the Hindus. He's not a god for people who only grew up with that tradition. He's not only a god for people who read the Ramayan or saw the TV serial. Okay? He's not a god for people who would really, really like to worship many, many, many gods. He's your God. Understand? And specifically, he's our God because he's here. So, in which ways does Krishna manifest as Ram? For what purposes? Well, Krishna is known as Leela Purushottam. In other words, Krishna's Leela is what defines him as being Purushottam. He comes and he demonstrates Leela. And Leela means sport or play. It doesn't just mean activities. Activities is Kriya. Krishna is not Kriya Purushottam. You see? If it was Kriya, then it was just Krishna performed some activities. This is Leela. He's Leela Purushottam because these are sports. Krishna is at play. But Lord Ram is Maryad Purushottam. Maryad means, just like if you look at the floor where you're sitting, you will see there's a line between one tile and another tile. And in life we have lines. And in a lot of times lines are there so we don't cross them. You go somewhere and it says police line, do not cross. Maybe that's in America. But it always says, there's a line dividing a particular corridor. Do not cross. Or there's one farmer's field and another farmer's field. And there's a hedge in between. Maybe made of earth, or maybe made of trees, thorn bushes. And it's so that the sheep or the cows don't escape. And it's also so that people don't come in and help themselves to a sheep or two. So this Maryad means actually a farmer's fence. Farmer's fence that keeps something out, keeps something in, and it keeps something from crossing over. So this is dharma. Dharma means when you have something that you're supposed to do, something that you're not supposed to do, and you know the difference, and there's a good clear fence in between. So knowing the fences, knowing the Maryad, this is the essence of dharma. If you don't know where the fence is, then you'll be offensive. I just thought of that one. If you don't know where the fence is, you can't sit on the fence in dharma. You're either one side or the other. It doesn't work like that. You can't say, well, I accept this regulated principle, but I don't accept that regulated principle. You always have a set of regulated principles. I'm not talking about initiated, uninitiated, devotee, non-devotee. Everybody's got a set of regulated principles. Regulated principle is when in England you drive on the left side of the road. When you go to Europe, you drive on the right side of the road. When you go to America, you drive on the right side of the road. Practically anywhere else in the world, you drive on the right side of the road. But here, the steering wheels, very curiously, for driving on the left side of the road, the steering wheels are on the right side of the car. Very confusing. Every time I go to Europe, I always get it wrong. I always try and get in. They say, what side are you going in? This side. Oh, sorry. Force of habit. So, if you try to drive on the other side of the road, I saw a pizza delivery boy the other day. Pizza delivery boy, he'd obviously come in from another part of the world, and he was going the wrong side up the motorway. And he was looking very bewildered. He just sort of flashed by, and I thought, uh-oh. That could lead to problems. So we don't drive on the other side of the road. How do you know what side of the road to drive on? Well, either you read the code, the highway code, that is the Shastra. Shastra means the scripture, something where it's written down. Or you see what everybody else is doing. But copying everybody else is a bad idea. If you copy everybody else, you'll become like a lemming. You become a creature of the herd, and when they go over the cliff, which they don't actually, lemmings don't, but if they did, you would simply follow them. So this could be a problem. So therefore one has to know Shastra. So know Shastra is to know Dharma. So today I wanted to speak a little bit about how Ramayan is Dharma Shastra. But there's more. Ramayan is also a Sharanagati Shastra. Sharanagati means bringing yourself, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, to the threshold of the house of bhakti. Threshold is the piece of the house that divides the inside from the doorstep. It's where you go in. They call it the threshold because they used to put thresh there. They used to put corn there, so you wouldn't get any wet feet inside. So this threshold, Sharanagati, is the threshold of the house of bhakti. So Sharanagati is 6 divisions of reorientating your life. It's important when you know Shastra to reorientate your life. It's important when you know which side of the road to go on to reorientate yourself, Mr. Pizza Boy. It's a true story, actually. I did see him driving on the wrong side of the road. Could be dangerous. Sometimes people do that for a dare, don't they? They get drunk and they go on the M25, driving in the wrong direction in their Porsche. And if they're lucky, they don't end up as pizza in the middle of the road somewhere. So, when you know the Shastra, then you reorientate your life. There's rules for everything. So when you reorientate your life and you follow Sharanagati, the 6 principles of Sharanagati, then what happens is that you come to bhakti proper. You develop bhakti proper. And this we also find in Ramayan. But I wanted to start by doing some singing. Are you all relaxed now? Happy that it might possibly be an interesting class? I do try. So this may not be Leela today. Not too much Leela. I'll depend on you to provide the Leela. But here is some, if you look at where it says invocation, okay? And you know this old. Being prayed for by the demigods, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth Himself, directly appeared with His expansion and expansion of the expansion. Their holy names were Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna. These celebrated incarnations thus appeared in 4 forms as the sons of Maharaj Dasharatha. Purport. Lord Ramachandra and his brothers Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna are all Vishnu Tattva, not Jiva Tattva. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands into many, many forms. Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Anantarupam. Although they are one and the same, Vishnu Tattva has many forms and incarnations. As confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, Ramadi Murtishu Kalani Amena Tishtan. The Lord is situated in many forms, such as Rama, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrughna. And these forms may exist in any part of His creation. All these forms exist permanently, eternally, as individual personalities of Godhead. And they resemble many candles, all equally powerful. Lord Ramachandra, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughna, who, being Vishnu Tattva, are all equally powerful, became the sons of Maharaj Dasharatha in response to prayers by the demigods. Amagyana, Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya, Chakshur Unmiritam Jena, Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. Indeed. Over the last few days, there's been a series of classes. Have you had the story sort of multiple times from different devotees? With dramatizations and multiple voice characterizations and all these things? What have you had? Regular Bhagavatam classes with a mention of Ram or... Yeah? Okay. So you had the personification of the Ramayan himself speaking. Krishna Dharma. I think there's nothing that he doesn't know about the Ramayan. He's very... so you had the story. Look, I wanted to say something about Ramayan being a Dharma Shastra, because when you get as old as me, it becomes important to say a little bit about Dharma for you young folks. Because if there's one thing that the Krishna consciousness movement from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu down to the present day has struggled with and has branched away from, it is the principle that that transcendence somehow negates Dharma. At a very advanced stage of development, it does. One of the big mistakes that the neophyte devotee makes, whoever he or she is in whatever situation, is to sort of imagine that bhakti is kind of like the Apollo moonshot. 10, 9, be with me, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. And off it goes, okay? It makes a sound like this. Go with me. I'm down with the youth. Okay. And it gets up to a certain point, and then what happens to stage 1? Falls away. Kicked away. Why? Because it's used up all the fuel. And then stage 2 takes off. Okay? Then stage 2 kicks in, and another rocket. And then ultimately then you reach orbit height. Sometimes we think that that's what you do with religion. That you have rules and regulations up to a certain height, and then that first stage you jettison, you kick it away as being not important. And it is true that when you have bhakti, and when you're practicing bhakti, you have all the regulative principles really, as they say in England, knocked into a cocked hat. Pretty much, if you're a servant of Krishna, it's sort of scissors, paper, rock. Being a devotee of Krishna trumps all the other religions, and it trumps all the other principles of religion, and it trumps all Dharma. And if I'm a devotee of Krishna, because I love Krishna, that's all I really have to think about. One small detail you've missed out. You don't love Krishna. Not yet. You'll know when you do. You cannot jettison Dharma at the first sign of loving Krishna. It's not an Apollo rocket. Rather, it's like a house that you're building. Now, if you're building a house, the most important thing is the foundation. At what point do you jettison the foundation? Do you get rid of it? You never get rid of it. Now, foundations have to go very deep, especially in sandy soil, as people are discovering in Mayapur. You have to, it's an in-joke, you have to build your, temple on a very strong foundation. So they have sunk 1,200 piles into the soil. 1,200 piles. 1,200 for a building that's, it's big, but it's not that big. It's high, but it's not that high. There are other buildings that are higher, other buildings that are wider. But the soil is such that you have to put 1,200 piles and then it will stay there. Why? Because the soil is not soil. A lot of it is sand and a lot of it moves. And there's a lot of water. So borrowing techniques from the Japanese, to make buildings earthquake-proof, we're now building a temple that will last a very long time. However, there are other neophytes in the building trade nearby who are building without such attention to detail. Small details like foundations. And we are seeing that everything looks good above the soil. But at a certain point, we have seen. So to be a devotee means be a devotee below the soil as well as above the soil. Otherwise, without very firm foundations, a certain point, not immediately, but at a certain point, you see. So it must be there. So Dharma is the foundation. And the foundations are never kicked away. Now, what do we mean by Dharma? Well, there's so many opinions and so many rules, every religion has okay. Well, we have 10 offenses to the holy name of Krishna. This is also Dharma. So from the same book, and those 10 offenses come from the Padma Purana, and from the same book, from the Bhumi Kanda, the Bhumi section, the Mother Earth section of the Padma Purana, we find these regulative principles of Dharma. Regulative principle just means that it regulates your life, meaning that if you're driving on the left side of the road, or the right side of the road, Mr. Pizza Boy, you better reorientate your life and go on the right side of the road, which is the left side. You understand? The right side of the road in England is the left side. You understand, Dharmatma? Right side of the road is the left-hand side. Okay, so we turn over our page and we see what are the principles of Dharma. Now, there are many principles of Dharma. There's the principles of Dharma that Vashishta, that Vashishta spoke. There's the principles that where am I? There's the principles of Dharma that Bhishmadev spoke. There's the principles of Dharma that many. So this is one list, and I thought I'd present this to you because, as I said, I'm old, and I think that these things are important. So I hope you'll bear with me. Yes. So, okay, where are we? And I want you to be imagining, because this is a quiz, afterwards I will be asking you in what way we see both Dharma being practiced properly by Lord Ram and his associates in the Ramayan. And when you read through these 12, where we see Ram doing these 12 as the personification of Dharma. And you see, because if you follow Ram, that's why everybody likes Ram Raj, as Prabhupada said, a government under Ram. If you follow Ram's codes, pretty much everything that Lord Ram does is worthy to be copied and emulated by any human being. If you copy Krishna, that could be a little difficult for you. If you go down to the bank of the river in summertime and steal the clothes of some young girls, you'll be locked away. Okay? If Krishna does it, that's his Leela. Ram didn't do that. He's Maryad Purushottam, not Leela Purushottam. If you stick your head in the mouth of a giant snake, well, that might be the last that we see of you. Krishna can do that. He can walk into a snake, but you can't. You see? So therefore, Ram is, we copy him and we become successful. We follow Krishna's instructions and we become but not necessarily copy everything that Krishna does. Understand? That's the difference. So, here we have, from the Padma Purana, some very practical things. And I want you to think where you've heard about Ram doing this, or Lakshman doing it, or Sita doing it, or Dasharath doing it, or not doing it. or Ravana, definitely not doing most of the things on this list. But where you have seen Ravana, or someone very close to Ravana, doing the things on this list. Okay, so you can be thinking, because I'm going to ask you. Okay, so the first one is Ija. I'll go through them quite quick. Ija means worship. It's one of the principles that is taught to a person when they're going to become Brahmins. Ija, how to worship. If you have a piece of string around your shoulder, but you don't do worship, then you haven't really, it's like having a nice iPod without iPod or iPad, one of the two, without the password. Okay, there's a password, and it's been sent to you on an email, and you've got to plug it in, and you've got to, then the whole machine comes to life. So being given the mantra by the guru, but not doing the thing that the mantra was for, this is like, it's just an empty piece of junk. It's just some cotton thread, so it's just some syllables. You have to make it work. So making the initiation work means that you put it into practice. So Ija, and everybody does Ija of some kind. The whole point is that the human being has to reorientate his consciousness to understand that there are people above me. There are devas, there are angels, the Gandharvas, there are celestials, there's great sages, and there's a lot of people. There's many more people that you cannot see than people that you can. You see? It is said that in the previous yugas, when someone says Rudra, he will think of the demigod, or he'll think of Rudra, he'll think of angry Vishnu. When he says Rudra in Dwapara Yuga, he thinks of Shiva. And when he says Rudra in Kali Yuga, he thinks of the Baba in the village called Rudra. So people's consciousness falls until all these names, Shiva, Brahma, Radharani, these are all names of, as Prabhupada said, Radharani, the Baba's wife. You see, there's no other consciousness. You see, and this is the effect of Kali Yuga, Manda, Sumanda, that you become closed off to higher levels of consciousness and higher levels of reality. And that's why Professor Dawkins and Mr. Hitchens and Mr. Harris can all write their new atheist books, because they're closed off, very intelligent, but they're maya pratyajnana. Their intelligence is closed off to higher levels of reality. So atheism becomes very easy, and it becomes very easy for people to understand atheism. But one time in Vrindavan, Prabhupada said, he said, just like, and he named another temple. He said, they are saying that there is no such person as Krishna. He says, they're trying to say, you worship the Vedas, but there is no such thing as the personality of Krishna. And he spoke loud and he said, but who is going to their temple? He said, and look, who is coming to this temple? And at the temple, there was, as is usual, nowhere to move because it was absolutely packed. Okay, as you will experience today. Well, maybe today, if the rain holds, or if it doesn't hold, then we shall see. But we get, we start throwing colors at each other, and 20,000 people turn up. Now, the heart of this community is not the functions that go on sort of around it, but the heart of the community is the Lord on the altar. Now, when you see, well, you can go to some other temples and some other places, and you sometimes notice an absence of bhakti, an absence of devotion. So when you look at Krishna, please look at Krishna. You see how Krishna has been beautifully decorated. It's not just a minimum decoration in order to, follow some rule or regulation, but it's a gorgeousness that people do not see. So that extra gorgeousness is bhakti, and bhakti attracts bhakti. Bhakti stimulates bhakti. So that when people come and they see bhakti manifest in the deity worship, they become bhaktas. That's a wonderful thing. So Prabhupada says, Krishna says, Ashnami, I eat. And therefore, we feed him. And then when we feed him, he becomes happy. And we become happy eating the remnants. And then people will come. Ashnami, we believe. Ashnami, Krishna eats when we offer. When we make an offering on this altar, we believe that Krishna eats it. He said, so who is going to that where they say, Ashnam, no, Krishna does not eat. You see? Here we say Krishna eats and everybody comes. So ultimately people do. You can try to stamp out religion like communism did in the Soviet Union. But underground people were still wanted to pray. Still wanted to pray to God, to enter into a personal relationship with the Godhead. That is something that you cannot remove. And we're finding now that people come from, atheist backgrounds. We're finding now, this is the most disturbing thing now. They've taken religious education out of a lot of schools. And we're finding that even the concept of religion, even the concept of God is fast disappearing. Kali Yuga is happening a lot quicker than we ever thought it would. You can go to some places now and people even the concept of ija, even the concept of worship is so foreign to them. They have to relearn everything. But deep within, people feel, I like what you guys do. I mean, I don't believe it, but I really like what you do. You're singing and dancing, You're singing and dancing down the street. I kind of like it. What makes you so happy? What makes you happy? Oh, it's because we understand that we have a personal relationship with the Godhead. Yeah, is there anything else that makes you happy apart from that one? No, that's the one. That's the one. So the thing is, ija makes you happy. Next one. Adhyayana. I'm going to go a bit quicker now because otherwise I know you'll get bored. I know my audience. Adhyayana means study the scriptures. Study the scriptures. So we study the scriptures in order to know how to do ija. How to do ija? It's there in the Shastra. So in the Pancharatra Agamas, we have all the details about, just like we do Guru Puja. One lady came here. She's a professor in, I forget, somewhere down south, Winchester University or something like that. Anyway, she comes here. And she came to me and she said, Kripamoya, could you tell me something about the rituals that you do during your morning program? I said, yeah, sure, or you can ask anybody. Anybody knows. I was a little bit busy at the time. She said, well, no, I've asked them what rituals they do, and they say, we don't do rituals here at the manor. She said, Kripamoya, I've just been to the morning program and I've watched everybody do rituals all the way up until breakfast time. And they say they don't do rituals. I say, have you ever heard of the Chinese goldfish? She said, no, what's that? She got out her notepad. She thought it was some special sutra that I was going to tell her. I said, well, if you go to the Chinese goldfish and you ask him as he's swimming around in the fish tank, you say to him, how's the water? He'll go like this. He says, water? What water? I don't see any water. I said, that's because devotees are so surrounded, completely surrounded in the fish tank that is Bhaktivedanta Manor. They're so surrounded by ritual that they can't see it. So, we file up here and we take Charanamrita, and then we walk down this way, and then we pay obeisances, and we pay obeisances facing that direction with the left shoulder towards Prabhupada, not the right shoulder, and the ladies do it a little bit over here, and then it's a man-lady kind of thing there, and, ladies making sure that they don't get in the way of the men, because there's a kind of hierarchy going on, although we pretend it's not there really. And then we get to the end of Guru Puja, and when we sing Chakudana Dilaja, you have to speed up so it's twice the tempo of the first few verses, and then we have to rise to a crescendo so that the crescendo of emotion ends with the clock. So we dovetail our emotions with the ticking of the minute hand. Don't go over 7:30. And then, then we start another ritual, walking round, and it's always clockwise that we go round in a circle, and then we have to do that thing. And then we have another ritual where we go like this and we spin each other around so that one person forces the other to go spinning out into the crowd. And then we all sit down and the men are on this side and the ladies are on this side. And then the speaker says, does the verse. And the men 3 times and the ladies 3 times. And, and if any lady does it, that's not exactly the tune that the speaker of the Bhagavatam has sung, all the men go, God. So it's all rituals all the way through. It's all rituals all the way through. And what to speak of in the deity room, and so it's all rituals. But we say, no, it's just love. It's just bhakti. It's just bhakti. That's true. And the other thing is true too. Because if you love someone, you're worried about the details. You do the details. You do what they like. Okay? So how do you know what they like? You read the agamas. We don't talk about the agamas, not really, because the agamas have been condensed into the Hari Bhakti Vilas. 200 verses from 200 shastras condensed into one book, and then the Hari Bhakti Vilas condensed into Satkriya Sardapika and the Archana Padati, and that's what we do. And occasionally we have to revisit it. We have to say, is my guru like this? Or if this is my previous guru, and then this is my guru now, so if I'm keeping him, so do I have a picture here and a picture? Is that picture going to be bigger than the small picture? Okay. And the point here is that according to Shastra, they didn't use pictures. There's no pictures in Shastras. There was no photography. Believe it or not. So we don't find in the Shastra that you put a picture of your guru on the altar. Why? Because Mr. Kodak had not been born yet. Okay? Mr. Polaroid had not been born. So it's all by mantra. So the mantras and the tantras, tantra just means activity, mantra, tantra, and yantra, your meditation, is all in the agamas. But we read those and we find out. So dhanam. Dhanam means charity. It means giving. It's very interesting actually. I was in Heidelberg last week and I went to the Sunday program, and there's the Sunday it was very disturbing for me. The Sunday program in Heidelberg was very disturbing for me. They were all white people. I didn't know what to do with myself. There was not one single Indian family. I thought, what kind of Krishna consciousness movement have I come to? I felt very out of place. Just kidding. Anyway, those 30 people, they pay almost £1,000 a month. And that means £250 per Sunday program from their own pocket. They all work during the week and they come for the Sunday program, but they pay for the boga, the rent, and the deity worship, and the everything. And it's just 30 families. So it can be done. It can be done. English people can pay for something. Now, if you join the Mormons, not suggesting that you do, but the Mormons, unless you give 10%, you can't get married in a Mormon temple. Okay? You have to pay 10% a month. You have to be a tither. Most religions, you have to give, even if you're, whatever you do, you have to give some percentage. Now, we train most of our devotees, the converts, we train them as collectors. We train them as collectors. Then when they leave the ashram, they go out thinking, I don't give anything, I'm a collector. People have to give me money. So we have a problem. And dhanam is one of the fundamental principles of human existence. It's one of the dharmas, one of the cardinal 12 points to give a donation. But often, Prabhupada says, when you go to see the king, or you go to see the deity, you don't go empty-handed. You bring some fruit, or you bring some coins. So, many well-trained families, they come, and even all the kids will have a penny or a couple of pennies, and they'll put it in the hundi box. This hundi box here is not just for the Indian families, boys and girls. It's a principle of dharma that you give to God and you give to good works. Okay, just thought I'd say that, just to reassure you. So danam is not just for something for other people, it's for us. Tapa, we all know the meaning of tapa, and we do tapa quite a lot. Tapa actually means heat. Heat is generated by austerity. It means self-discipline. It means I want to do this, but I'm not going to do it because I realize it's better for me and better for other people if I don't. You see. The other principle is doing what you want, when you want, with who you want, how you want, and however you want. You see. And this is a sort of principle of, I think it was Aleister Crowley, Mr. Black Magic. He had this principle. Do what you will shall be all of the law. Okay. It's very interesting, actually, that in Edinburgh, we took over from, it's often a case that devotees move into a place that has been used for other purposes. So we moved into an old building, and followers of Mr. Crowley had been there a long time previously. But our dharma means to do what you want whenever you want. And sometimes people think that when eventually I get free from the religious principles of Krishna consciousness, then I can have real fun. Because for so many years I've been following the religious principles, I've been a very good person. Now it's time for me to enjoy life a little bit. People think like that. And I talk to devotees who've unfortunately gone through that mind change. It doesn't work like that. You become very, very damaged. You become very, very damaged. Everything has a limit. It's like alcohol has a limit. Okay? Alcohol has a limit. Smoking has a limit. Cannabis has a limit. Not a very high limit. But the more you take, the more your body says, okay, I will readapt myself to the ingredients that you now wish me to be made up from. So you change the chemical constitution of your body, and you change the chemical constitution of your brain, and you will suffer the consequences. Every week there's some story about some poor girl, often a girl, isn't it, who's taken ecstasy at a club or a rave or some other kind of renamed drug, and they've died as a result. And the poor parents are left distraught. She was only 16. It was the first time she'd gone clubbing. I don't know why she'd ever done that. Don't think it doesn't happen to devotees. We had a devotee who died. Devotee who died experimenting with drugs because just thought, well, if I'm not going to follow the four regulative principles, then there are no principles. You see? If I'm no longer a devotee following the four regulative principles, then what are the principles? So instead of following something, they follow nothing at all, which is even less than they were following before. People have everyone comes complete with Paramatma inside them that tells them, this is good, this is bad. And in childhood, pretty much, we're in touch with the Paramatma. But as you get older, when lust enters the bloodstream, and you become, instead of mummy and daddy focused, you become me focused, then it becomes very, very difficult to control that. Therefore, people have to know about Dharma Shastra in their youth and in their childhood, so that when they're older, they can go the right way. So this, we had one devotee, not an ISKCON devotee, but he was coming up for his second initiation, and he'd become very enamored by this ayahuasca, this South American hallucinogenic, and he had a party, and he was celebrating the fact that he was going to India that week, and he was going to have his second initiation somewhere in Navadvip. And that night he took too much, and they took him to the hospital. He was dead on arrival. The point is, my dear friends, that you have to be very, very careful, because the rules are set for all human beings. Now, the difficulty is that Krishna consciousness may give a person such power that he or thinks, I'm up there with Krishna. I can tolerate anything. I can do anything. And this is called Utsaha Mayi. Utsaha Mayi. It's spoken about by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Utsaha Mayi means when a child thinks, I can drive. You've given them 2 lessons in the car, then they jump in the dad's sports car and think, I can drive. We had a big crash here in a £300,000 Italian sports car down by Vishwambar's house. Vishwambar was on the scene as the person was dying. It was a young guy, £300,000 sports car. I can drive. Look how fast I can go. And you're gone. It's very, very delicate. The human body is much more delicate than you think. It's as delicate as a peach. Delicate as a peach. You have to be very careful what you put into it, what you listen to, what you eat, what you say to others. Dharma is very, 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 very delicately balanced. So charity, tapa, satyam, speaking truth, kshama, learning how to forgive. Learning how to forgive others. We tell our married couples that getting married means now the biggest lesson of your life is giving, giving, and giving. Husband and wife, giving, giving, giving. And then, what comes next? Forgiving, forgiving, forgiving. So this forgiveness is the sign of a Brahmin. Forgiveness is the sign of a Brahmin. Or one who is in Brahminical consciousness. One who is a Vaishnava. Forgiving, forgiving, forgiving. Then, next comes self-restraint. Asteya, not taking something which has not been given to you. Not taking something which hasn't been given to you. It's very important. Understand what's yours. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincham jagatjadam jagat tena chaktena bunjita magridha kasyasvedanam. Everyone has a quota. Understand what your quota is. There's enough in the world for your need, but not for your greed. So understand what your quota is. Now, many, many countries in the Northern Hemisphere are taking far more. Far, far more than they actually need. Who did the calculation? Somebody did the calculation. That if the entire planet was living at the level that we live, we would need 3 planet Earths for the resources. So that's unsustainable. It's unsustainable. So sooner or later, and preferably sooner, we have to get back to a simpler, more natural way of life. We really do. And we have to stop talking about it and projecting it into the future as if it's something that Prabhupada talked about, 50 years ago now, people. 50 years ago. But that it's going to happen at some point when the revolution happens. We'll get over thinking that there's ever going to be a revolution, and overnight, things will change. That is called the millennialist attitude. Our revolution is very slow, but we want it to be very real. Prabhupada's books are out, and people are reading. At the recent ISKCON Leaders Sangha, Devamrita Swami he said 3 things, 3 challenges that ISKCON now faces. And they're just things that Prabhupada said, but 3 things that we really didn't do. And he said one of them is to demonstrate an alternative lifestyle. He said people are cramming themselves into cities, and that's unsustainable for any kind of advanced human life. Prabhupada told us about living in the country, but we didn't do it. Why don't we do it? Well, because Prabhupada also told us about getting devotee association, which basically translates as everybody has to come to London. So why should it be that every Vaishnava has to either live in London or preach in London? Because during Prabhupada's time, he would grab a young couple. Okay, now you're married, go start a center. Okay? Now we don't say that. We say, oh, now you're married, now you should go back to university. Okay? You should make sure you get a house on Camrose Avenue so that you can send your children to Krishnavanti school. Huh? But Prabhupada used to say, go start a center. That's why in the 12 years that Prabhupada was physically with us, there were 108 centers. How do you think Prabhupada created 108 centers? Work it out. How many new centers were created? So, these were the principles. Open a center. Publish my books. Read my books. Worship the deity. Take prasadam. Sing, chant, dance on Harinam. These are the principles Prabhupada gave us. But there's one principle that we're not following. Go start a center. And I can't sit here on this high cushion and look at you without feeling guilty. You see? Because I know the history. But believe it or not, people of London, there is a united kingdom beyond the M25. And Krishna consciousness is very, very alive in people's hearts. All they need is a compassionate Vaishnava to go there and begin something. How do we get onto that? Well, it's my favorite topic. Anyway, a simple way of life. Shocham, purity. Ahimsa, non-violence. And then Shanti, peace. Now Prabhupada said two things. He said that when society is peaceful, you can get on with the business of Krishna consciousness. But when society puts peace as the highest possible principle, he said then that's not human society. One time Prabhupada was giving a talk, and he said, watch my mouth. He said, we are not interested in peace. We're not interested in peace. Meaning that we're interested in peace as a byproduct of Krishna consciousness. If you have Krishna, you will have peace. And we're also interested in peace that is created so that we can practice Krishna consciousness. But just having peace by itself, there's not a higher principle. It just means an absence of war, or an absence of conflict, or an absence of violence. In order to preserve peace, Dharma must be there. People become nice. When we went to the House of Commons, just recently some devotees went and the Prime Minister addressed them. But when we went previously, different ministers addressed us and said, the reason why we are very interested in people who do religion, and why religion is still a charity in this country, because you would think that with all the talk about atheism, the first thing the government would do is to say, actually, yeah, why are we giving VAT rebate to religions, just making propaganda on something which just may or may not be true. You'd think that any intelligent person who's been to many dinner parties where people have talked about how wonderful secularism is and how wonderful atheism is would say, yeah. But he said the reason why we're still very interested in religion, despite the fact that religion, as we've seen, can go really badly wrong, is because in general, when people follow religion of any kind, they become better people, they become nicer people, they become kinder people. They do things for other people. And doing things for other people and not getting paid for it, that's very helpful for a government, because doing nice things for people costs money. And feeding people is very important, because hungry people are angry people. Now, I'm not saying that, we should change the Krishna conscious movement so we all, do food for all and don't do Harinam. But the point is that feeding people, clothing people, looking after people's worries, so counseling people, helping people through their difficulties, this all costs money. So if you do this for free, the government's very interested. Carry on. Please carry on doing it for free. Whether you believe in the flying spaghetti monster, or whether you believe, we don't care what you believe. This is a Dawkinsism. You believe what you believe, but if it makes you a nicer person that does good things for other people, that helps them in a time when they need it, we'll support you. We'll give you back the VAT that your donors pay. And that's how it goes on. So generally speaking, one who becomes, who does all these other 11, becomes very peaceful. And then Guru Sevanam. And of course, if you have peace, then you do. So Guru Sevanam ties in with number 1. Guru Sevanam means that be grateful to the Guru, and that expands into, offer respect to your elders, to your mother, to your father, to your grandparents, to your older brother. Any religion will tell you these things. So now where do we see that in the Ramayan? Offer respect to your older brother. Offer respect to your elders. Where do we see that? This is the bit where you can call out. Huh? The golden deer. Yeah, tell us the golden deer story. I didn't want to put you on the spot. Yeah. Yeah. Younger brother. That's why Lakshman is called Ramanuja. Ram Anuja. Anuja, following. Born after Ram. Not much in it, of course. A few minutes, because they were quadruplets. But he was very respectful to his elder brother, so much so that it was said he only looked at Sita's feet. And that's why Sita's words pained him so much. So we find that Dasharath was very, he practiced Guru Sevanam. He was very respectful to his Gurudev and very respectful, because Ram had to, when Vishwamitra came and he said, I want to take your boys, they're 16 now, I want them to fight the demons that have been bothering us in the forest. Dasharath could have said, I'm sorry. You may be a guru, you may be important, you may be famous, but you're not getting my kids. These boys, these are princes, and I know how dangerous that forest is because I've been there. But what did he say? With tears in his eyes, he said, all right, take them to the forest. It's so curious that then later on, Dasarath becomes the one who sends them to the forest. See? The result of misplaced dharma. So he makes a promise, and then the promise sort of comes back on him. But we find all the way through. We find Sita she respects her elders. She respects Anasuya. The story of Anasuya and Atri. Atri is sage who lives in the forest with his wife Anasuya. Anasuya is a great guru, actually. And then we see that she gives instructions on how to be a good wife to Sita. So those are theirs. So all the way through the Ramayan, we'll find gurus and elders being respected. Where don't we see it? Give me one incident where a mother was not respected. Yeah, Bharat. Who's Bharat's mother? Kaikeyi. Right, Kaikeyi. Who's Bharat's wife? Mandavi. Yeah, Mandavi. So because Kaikeyi was the one who engineered the removal, the exile of his beloved brother to the forest. Yeah. This was so he was extremely displeased with his mother. So normally he was very, very respectful, but at that point he wasn't. name me an example of where Ram does Ija. Lord Ram worships Lord Shiva, and he worships him in order to cross over the ocean. Okay, and you could still go to that place, and it is known as Rameshwaram. Rameshwaram. That's right. Okay, that's good. That's very good. Let's talk about Adhyayana, studying the scriptures. Studying the scriptures. Who sang the Ramayan? When did Ram listen to the Ramayan? How's that possible? Yeah, Love and Kush. Love and Kush, they sang the Ramayan. Interesting, huh? Give me an example of Lord Ram doing Dhanam, giving big donation. Oh, you're fading. That's true. Dakshina comes from the student to the guru. I'm thinking of another place where he gave a gift so big that he gave away everything. That was a very big gift, wasn't it? He gave Vibhishan all of Lanka. But then he gave away all of Ayodhya. Who did Ram give Ayodhya to? North Ayodhya, South Ayodhya, West Ayodhya, and East Ayodhya was given by Ram to the 4 groups of Brahmins. And he was doing the yagyas. He gave the entire kingdom away. He gave everything away. And what did the Brahmins do after he'd given them the kingdom? Yeah, they immediately gave it all back. Don't worry about giving Brahmin charity. You'll get it back somehow. This life or the next life, but you'll get it back. Okay. So then, tapa. Tapa. What tapa was done by Ram? Yeah. 14 years in the forest. All those years in the forest. This is a great tapa. Of course, if someone was to say to you, I now ban you for life from driving to work or going on the tube every day, no more commuting for you, no more working in a cubicle, in an office in London, I ban you to a tropical forest with waterfalls, beautiful flowers, mountains, and the sweet singing of birds. Now go. You'd probably think, oh, I scored there. Very good. Those jungles are still there, by the way. You can still go. However, the downside is the insects. The downside is the wild animals. The downside is the diseases. The downside is the poisonous plants. So it wasn't that Sita and Ram were having a wonderful time. All these things had to be engaged with. So that's Ram warns Sita before they go to the forest. He said, I want to explain to you now what the forest is like. He said, it's got man-eating rakshasas. And Sita says, that's all right. I know that you'll be with me. You can defeat any man. I've heard about you do it with Vishwamitra. And then he goes through it, and there's a whole dialogue where he's saying this, and she says, that's all right. Finally, as long as I'm with you, I know that I'll be safe. And she says, whatever you say, I'm coming with you, my dear Ram. So he says, all right, here you come. So then, what's a good example of someone who did not follow the principle of following his elder brother. Vibhishan. Vibhishan warns Ravana, and eventually he leaves. And of course, we said that Ramayan was a Dharma Shastra, and we also say it's a Sharanagati Shastra. So this dialogue between Vibhishan and, I'm finishing now, very soon. This dialogue between Vibhishan and Ram is the most prized in some Vaishnava Sampradayas as the ultimate, because in that one, Lord Ram says that whoever surrenders to me, whoever takes shelter of me, I will protect that person. And there's a very nice verse that Vibhishan says, and it's in the Ramayan, and we have it here. And I hope I can find it for you. Lord Ram says, Mitra bhavena sampraptam natyajyayam katam chana dosho yadyapi tasya syat satam etad agarhitam. I cannot refuse to receive under any circumstances one who has come to me in a friendly spirit. Even if there is wickedness in him, his acceptance is not reprehensible in the eyes of good people. Then a few more texts afterwards. He says, Sakrideva prapannaya tavasmiti cha yachate abhayam sarvabhutebhyo dadamyetad vratam mama. It is my eternal principle that if any living being takes shelter of me even once, saying, I am yours, then I award that person freedom from all fear. So traditionally that's what we do on Ram Navami. We come before Sita and Ram, and looking at Ram's feet, we say, I am yours. It's a wonderful thing to do. This is called Sharanagati. Jai. So then, who was very faithful to Ravana? Who was very faithful to Ravana? Huh? I wasn't thinking of Hanuman, actually. Hanuman was faithful to Ravana? He burned down his entire city. Mandodari. Mandodari was Ravana's what? Wife. And Mandodari is actually one of they're called the chaste ladies, yes. They're actually called the Panchakanya. The Panchakanya, the 5 virgins. I'm not imagining for a moment that Mandodari was a virgin, but unless you know a story that I don't. But Mandodari was so faithful to Ravana that her name is recited at every wedding ceremony. At least I recited it at every wedding ceremony, because we praise her as a wife. We praise her as a faithful wife. Even though her husband was Ravana, she stayed faithful to him. This is a wife. The wife is like the shadow of the husband. So, along with Mandodari, the other 4 are Ahalya, then Draupadi. Ahalya is the wife of Gautam Rishi. And she was very faithful to her husband, but there's a whole story where Indra comes, and he's a shapeshifter, so he comes looking like her husband, and they enjoy, and then she discovers to her horror that this person is Indra, and then he is Gautam Rishi, who also writes Dharma Shastra, Rishi Gautam. He writes, anyway, he curses Indra to have hundreds of things that are not particularly nice on his body, and he goes away in the shape of a cat. Anyway, it's a whole thing. It's another story. But anyway, we praise her for her faithfulness. Draupadi, very, very faithful. Sita, then Tara, and then Mandodari. These 5 names are recited often by young girls who want to become married. So if anybody not married, you recite these names, you'll get a very good husband. He will come riding in on a white horse, believe me. So, these names we recite. So then, eventually, in the Ramayan, we find that it is a Bhakti Shastra. And we find this notably revealed by the devotion of Hanuman. The devotion of Hanuman to Ram. Not just in the forest setting, but Hanuman is taken out of his forest setting and he serves Ram in a different setting. And that is why we will always glorify Rama Duta Hanuman. Rama Duta Hanuman. So he's always seen at the feet of the Lord. Always seen at the feet of the Lord, ready to do service. Kinkaro. Kinkaro. This is the attitude of the servant of Ram. Yes, my Lord, what would you have me do? That's this position. You see. The only time you see that position these days is at Wimbledon. Okay? Wimbledon tennis. And the ball boys are there like that. One knee up, one knee down. Ready. To run over and pick up a ball. This is the attitude of the servant. Ready. So Hanuman is always, yes, my Lord, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? So this is, to be at the feet of Ram is a great reward. This is the reward that Guha was given as he ferried the Lord and Sita and Lakshman across the river. He said, can I pay you something? Yes, my payment is that I just want to wash your feet. I just want to serve your feet. This is reward enough. So this is the reward for devotees. There's a beautiful beautiful poetry called Paduka Sahasranam. Paduka Sahasranam means 1,000 glorifications of the sandals of Ram. 1,000 glorifications of his. How can you write 1,000 verses of poetry about a pair of shoes? But when the pair of shoes belong to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's so many things you can say. When you love Ram, then that poetry just drips from the mouth. And Bharat was just holding those padukas of Ram in his little cottage in Nandigram for 14 years. His hair was all long and disheveled. He was just drinking water and eating barley that had been soaked in cow urine. Barley grains soaked in cow urine. This was his diet for 14 years. But he was there and he was just worshipping the Lord's padukas. He was just waiting for the Lord's return. So similarly, tatenukam pam mikshamanayo. We are similarly patient. We have to have great patience. All the great acharyas have told us that we have to have patience. Patience is very important because, my Lord, I've been worshipping you now. I've been chanting your names for 6 months. Still I don't have your darshan. I've been initiated now for 2 years. Still it hasn't happened. When are you going to come in front of me, playing your flute or carrying your bow? When am I going to see you? Okay. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. After 40 years, you can write a song that begins, Kabe, Habe, Bolo Sedi Nama. When will that day come? When will that day come? When I will roll about on the bank of the Ganges with tears in my eyes. So great patience is required. Doing bhakti is a lifelong endeavor. But occasionally we have to see words of encouragement. And the word of encouragement really for us should be, don't give up. Don't give up. And sometimes this don't give up, masuchaha, don't worry. It's sometimes picked out in jewels on the Lord's hand when you go to Balaji. Sometimes he's wearing a glove, a hand. And it's picked out in diamonds. But picked out in rubies is the word masuchaha. Masuchaha, don't worry. Don't worry. It'll come. It'll happen. I'm there. Just wait for me. Can you wait for me? Can you wait 14 years for me? because my brother did. Can you wait 14 years for this realization? Can you wait 14 years for Krishna consciousness? And then when you wait 14 years, you will understand, actually, it was always eternal. There's no such thing as time in this bhakti process. Whether it's 14 years or 40 years, Krishna always was there. It was me. It's not you, it's me. That's the problem. That's the problem in the relationship. It's not you, it's me. I'm at fault in this relationship. I have to reorientate my consciousness. I'm still thinking about driving on the wrong side of the road. I'm still thinking about doing things I shouldn't do. I'm still not thinking that the greatest happiness and the greatest pleasure of my life will be to be like Hanuman, just waiting. What shall I do? What shall I do? Give me your order. So these are some of the things that we learn from Ramayan. And if we're like the sages in the Dandaka forest, in the Dandaka forest, the sages were looking at Ram, and in the next life, they were reborn. They were reborn as gopis, so that they could again be in a forest, but this time they could have the right relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So our aspiration will take us forward, 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 and onwards. So these are some of the things that we can learn from Ramayan today. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada.